2020 session meeting. I am Nancy Randall, and I would like to call this meeting to order at 6:31 p.m. We are coming to you from PS 32 in Carroll Gardens, Gowanus. I would ask that everyone that's here in attendance in person, there's a sign-in sheet in the back of the room. If at some point before you leave, if you could kindly sign the sign-in sheet. And we currently have on the call 21 people. Thank you all for being here. Before we call the roll, I would like to invite the interpreters to introduce themselves in their languages, and I ask please for the Bangla interpreter to begin.
Before I declare, there's a technical issue like the phone line, we are not admitted yet. Waiting for the phone line. Should we start declaring without the phone line or?
One second, we're trying to figure that out. Thank you, Will.
Sorry,
I don't know what's
we've
going
had
on
some
with
technical issues. But
Yeah,
that I'll pass it to, I'm sorry, were you,
He was told to make a brief statement on class size matter.
oh, can I please
Oh,
pass
he
it
can,
to the Mandarin interpreter?
Yes. I would hope somebody would know that one.
Hello, this is Matt Chen. I'm going to the partner with Stone together to translate by Mandarin. OK， 各位晚上家长跟贵宾大家好。我们今天有中文翻译的专线，请拨打1347966411，ID 密码为994042851，井字号。再重述一次，我们今天有中文普通话的翻译专线，请拨打1347966411，然后 ID 密码为994042851，井字号。请各位家长跟贵宾进入专线之后，请务必把你的麦克风关静音，以免背景音乐嘈杂影响其他收听者的权利。好，谢谢你 ，Thank you。
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I see the Bangla interpreter. You have your hand raised.
Oh, because of the line issue, so we're still waiting.
Oh, okay. Okay, thank you so much. And I'll pass it to the Spanish interpreters.
Hello, good evening. The following message will be said in Spanish, offering interpretation services. Buenas noches, yo Marisela junto a Arnold estaremos ofreciendo servicios de interpretación en español. Por favor, marque al 347-966-4114. Ingrese el número de conferencia 522-626-366, símbolo numeral. Si desea escuchar audio en español, pero desea permanecer en esta sala de conferencia con Zoom, para poder ver la reunión usando su computadora, silencie su computadora y el volumen y marque de su teléfono a la línea de conferencia en español, que es al 347-966-4114. Ingrese el número de conferencia 522-626-366, símbolo numeral. Gracias. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We at this time are awaiting quorum. We currently have 4 of our members in attendance, but we need 6 of our members in attendance in order to be able to conduct our meeting. So we're going to take a pause. I apologize, but we're going to take a pause as we await the arrival of 2 more members in order for us to be able to continue our meeting. Thank you. We are also trying to figure out the Bengali line in order for it to.
Yeah, we're good now.
Oh, it's working now.
Oh,
Okay,
it's working.
okay,
so
that's
maybe
great to know. Okay.
Maybe we just call the, and then we're gonna go straight to CC. And we're gonna go straight to the calendar.
All right, everybody, we do not currently have quorum and we do not want to keep you waiting while we await quorum for our special session. So I move for us to move to our calendar meeting and then we will do our special session meeting after our calendar meeting. So
This meeting.
we are now going to call the roll. Antonia, could you please call the roll?
Sure.
That video is not working.
That video is not working. Okay. Turn it on. Okay. Why isn't it working? Oh my goodness. All right, I'm gonna mute. Hello, everybody. I'm going to call the calendar meeting to order at 6:39 and call the roll. Antonia Ferraro, I am here. Councilmember Tia Shellsteed is absent. Vincent Liu has an excused absence. Nana Poku Ajakum, absent. Alfred DeAngelis, he did say he would be coming late. Joseph Alexander, has an excused absence. Yvonne Bonda appears to be absent. Nancy Randall?
Here.
Vanessa Gonzalez Uoka? Here. Nakia Mahasa Brown? Here. Great. Unfortunately, we do not have quorum, but we're going to continue on with this calendar meeting. We don't have anything to vote on, and I will turn it over to Vanessa Gonzalez Uoka to read the introduction. Oh shoot. Okay, hold on. I guess I'll just turn it towards you. It's so confusing. Wow. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming to the District 15 Community Education Council tonight. We appreciate your time and we're glad that you could join us. For those of you who are new to the CEC meetings, there are 32 CECs throughout the city, plus 4 city councils. Each CEC represents a community school district, and each is made up of 11 volunteer members, 9 of whom are elected by parents in the district, and the remaining members are appointed by the Brooklyn Borough President. And we have 1 high school student member who we don't have yet in this council, but hope to have one soon. CEC 15 is a state mandated public body responsible for ensuring that public school parents and the public have input in educational decisions that are made at the school district level. Our council reviews education policies and advocates for high quality education that benefits our District 15 public elementary and middle school students. CEC 15 serves 35 elementary, middle schools, and 1 high school under the oversight of our superintendent. CEC members serve in an advisory role on education matters to the district superintendent and the counselor of the Department of Education and state and city elected officials. We also approve district school zoning lines submitted by the Department of Education. We evaluate our district superintendent. We review the district educational programs, and we support school leadership teams. We also submit recommendations for the school construction authority's annual capital plan. And as of a recent amendments to the law, the CEC also advises in the selection of parent coordinators. We actively seek input and feedback from public schools and encourage you to visit our website at cecd15.org. Please take a look at our Facebook page, connect with us on Twitter, and write to us about any issues you might want us to address or learn about. Each school has a CEC liaison, and all of our names and contact information is available on our website. Tonight's meeting is going to take place here in person, but we also have a public comment period. We'll take remote and in-person comments to gather additional feedback from our families and school community members. You can leave your camera on if you like, or for your own privacy, if you prefer, you might want to use just audio during the comment period and throughout the meeting. Supposed to go, I don't think I'm supposed to go through this. Yeah.
It's preferable if you just keep going.
Okay. Okay, thank you everyone for your patience. As for the rules of engagement, when you comment, please be respectful of the privacy of others. Please do not include the names of children or staff. Guests who make inappropriate comments will be removed from the meeting. And during the public comment period, those attending virtually can raise their hand to comment or indicate in the chat that they would like to speak. Those called upon will be unmuted. And if you're attending in person, you must sign the guest attendance sheet, which is at the back of the room, to indicate that you would like to speak or comment. Speakers will be called on one at a time and will be allowed 1 minute for each comment. We'll hear as many speakers as the time allows. And if it is possible that not every comment or question will be given time. So the best way to get your question answered is always to write to the CEC at cec15@schools.nyc.gov. CEC members will also be given a comment period. Members will be called upon and are each permitted 1 2-minute comment or question. If members do not have a comment, they might cede their time to the chair. And now I'll turn it to Nancy for the report, please.
You unmute yourself. So tonight is our last meeting of the 2022. I will project for our audience tonight. Tonight is the last meeting of the 22-23 school year. And we want to begin with some thank yous. First and foremost, thank you to Camille Casaretti for your amazing service to the families of our district. To Shanice, you have been amazing. Thank you. To my fellow council members, thank you so much for your service, especially Antonia. Superintendent Alvarez, to Deputy Superintendent Lanzalato, to all of the district office team, thank you so much for listening to the voices of the parents on this council, as well as the parents across the district who need your assistance in navigating the public education system. To all of our principals, we appreciate you so much for the communication that you have had with each liaison council member and for informing us about what advocacy we can do in your school's behalf. And a general thank you to all teachers, guidance counselors, school staff, anybody that is in any way, shape, or form working with our children. Thank you so much for your work. And now I want to bring up a couple of highlights of this year. One of the highlights has been our participation in the diversity plan evaluation. We appreciate that the CEC has been a part of the process. We have worked with the district to make sure that the voices of parents do hold weight and that they are an important part of understanding the evaluation. A second highlight has been the work that as a council we have done to spread the word about the school-wide enrichment model. And the district just hosted a showcase of project-based learning, which aligns with the school-wide enrichment model, or SEM. And we are grateful for the district for aligning what so many families are interested in having for their children. And that leads me to the, is it blank? Okay, here. That leads me to this beautiful t-shirt that was designed by one of our District 15 students who is here tonight. I would love to call up Anastasia Enriquez, who is a student here at PS 32. Come around here. I know it's a little tight. Come around here. Let's see if we can.
Maybe
If we
step
can.
over the.
Step
There
over.
you go.
Okay, do you want to say hi to the people? Anastasia, what grade are you in?
5th grade.
5th grade, so you're graduating.
Yes.
Oh, okay, congratulations.
Congratulations.
And can you tell us what the design, can you tell us a little bit about what kind of your inspiration for it?
Well, I was inspired by how hands-on projects can help students learn complicated subjects better and how it makes learning really fun.
Oh. It's beautiful. Well done. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for coming.
Beautiful.
hearing comments on the chat. Congratulations as well.
Oh. Thank you,
Thank you.
Anastasia. That was very sweet. And to pivot a little bit, but to think about the importance of our children's experience in classes. Class Size Matters is looking for volunteers to testify at the Borough and Community Education Council hearings scheduled for this month. The final adopted plan for the class size bill is supposed to be revised based on public input. Right now, it doesn't look like the city is going to actually be able to, in 2 years, move to have classes at the numbers that they're supposed to be at, according to the Class Size Matters bill. So this is an important thing that we need to keep pushing to make sure that we are going to have the numbers that we need to have. And I'm sticking into the chat the class size reduction plan for anybody who's interested in taking a look at it. Yes. And with that, I will pass it to, I would love to call up Ken Linus from the Council of School Supervisors and Administrators, who can give us shed some more light for us.
So yeah, please,
If you
if
could
you could
please-
just speak into this microphone, we'll turn it towards him and then.
Our hybrid
You
game.
could just sit right there
Okay.
and we'll turn it towards you and this will
Okay.
pick up your voice.
All right. So, good evening. Thank you for accommodating a few minutes for me. I am an assistant director for the Council of School Administrators and Supervisors. They represent 17,000 principals, assistant principals, EAs, supervisors of both retired and currently assigned to schools, all schools. And they asked me to speak at the CEC tonight very briefly, speaking about class size reduction. The obvious issue with class size reduction is a great need for an additional 9,000 teachers and a lot of extra classrooms. So CSA's position is that if the DOE and if School Construction Authority have plans to address these demands and requirements based on state law, that they communicate with us consistently and in a transparent manner so that we can all be on the same page moving forward.
Is it on? Sorry, somebody said they couldn't hear.
Oh, that's okay. So, yeah, basically CSA's position is we would all love small class sizes, but class sizes currently are based on 32 children in a class. They're looking at 25 and less in a class, which automatically, mathematically means a great many more teachers to be hired and a great many more classrooms to be built. So in a nutshell, CSA is just asking for school construction and DOE to identify whether or not they have, based on their own calculations, a plan for implementing $30 to $35 billion in capital funding to build such space specifically to address class size reduction. So I thank you for your time this evening. And if there are concerns about it, the president of CSA is willing and very available to speak to any CEC or any community member about our plans going forward as well. All right,
Thank you so much.
thank you very much.
so much.
Appreciate it.
30 to 35 billion.
Yes, that's what the number we were given to present as a number that they calculate for actually building space. As you know, a lot of schools are being built throughout the city, but if you do the math for class size reduction, that really brings 32 or 35 down to 25 or 22. Right away, you need an enormous amount of new classrooms and over 9,000 teachers. So if they have a plan, we're just asking for it to be transparent and consistently communicated to us. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Brad Alter put something into the chat. Yes, there will be a public comment period, Brad. And just to, if anybody didn't hear what Mr. Linus said, it's $30 to $35 billion is what the CSA is estimating is needed to be able to implement the class size reduction bill. Okay. Next, I want to bring up summarizing. Can everybody hear me on the, I can't hear myself. I see if that.
Yes, see the green
Yeah,
when that green.
Yeah, I can be heard. I don't know, I can't hear myself. Okay. So we had a meeting 2 weeks ago where parents at PS 94, parents were very vocal about summarizing and their frustration with the summarizing situation. Many of us on the council let the parents there know that we feel the same way, we're in the same boat. And so we heard you loud and clear and we have acted. We put together a petition that has currently garnered 158 responses. Please keep them coming. We are dropping the document in the chat and we will send the document and all of the names and the feedback to the mayor. We are also sending this petition to other districts and asking them to send it to their families. With that said, there has been an update to the way that the city is doing summarizing. So approximately 94,000 students right now have been matched with a summer rising seat. There are supposed to be 110,000 seats. So that means that there are potentially 16,000 seats available right now. The way that those seats will be allocated is that this Friday, families with students who are identified as priority will be placed and they will receive emails directly from CBOs, emails or phone calls directly from the community-based organizations that are running Summer Rising. And the placements, the priority groups will first be siblings that were placed in a different program or that did not get a seat. Secondly, it will be students connected to that community-based organization in school. And third, it will be all other students. This is not an application period, and only families who fall within the priority buckets and initially express interest in a site with newly available seats will be contacted. So just doing the math, that means that potentially there are 16,000 seats that are available that will be filled in the coming week. But 45,000 students did not get seats. So 45,000 minus 16,000 gets us to 29,000. So potentially there are still 29,000 students that did not get seats. Furthermore, my understanding, and please anybody correct me if I'm wrong, is that Summer Rising is available to public school students, charter school students, and private school students. Is that, do I have the correct information? That I have the correct information. That's a bit challenging for our families who are public school families to know that there potentially maybe students from private schools who are being granted these seats. So one more thing that I'm certain is adds to the weights of consideration. Please, were you able to drop it in the chat to the petition? Okay, so please sign our petition. Please share our petition. And also, if you are waiting to find out if you might have a chance to get a seat, if you have applied for Summer Rising, just sit tight and hope that on Friday or next week you get a phone call. If you have not applied to Summer Rising, you will be able to apply starting Friday, June 23rd, if there are any seats left. Okay, next, CEC 15 new members. We don't know who the new members will be. We are waiting for the DOE to inform us as to who new members are. So we are supposed to find out the third week of June. What I do know is that I believe that myself, Vanessa, and Alfred are the only ones who ran, which means that we are going to have, whether or not the three of us get elected, that means that we will have a council that is mostly new members. And so we look forward, as sitting members, we look forward to meeting all the newly elected and appointed CEC members once they have been elected and appointed, and helping them to adjust to the knowledge that they will need to know to be on this council. Based on our bylaws, we have tentatively scheduled meeting dates of July 11th, 18th, and 25th for the CEC 15 annual business and calendar meetings at 131 Livingston Street. If anybody is around in July, please join us for, or I don't know if I'll be here, so please join them. Please join them for the meetings. Okay, and now the fun part begins. Okay, we now want to honor President Camille Casaretti, former President Camille Casaretti. So we call Allison Mingus from the office of Assemblyperson Joanne Simon. And I will move. Or actually, I'll just turn it around. How about that? Does that work? Okay, I'll turn it around. Wait, let's see. 1 second. Let me just make sure that this is. Sorry. Okay. Okay. Here we go.
Good to see you. We don't want to take much time, but Assemblymember Simon really wanted to publicly recognize all of your hard work. It means so much to her and to the district. You've done so much for so many families, and the citation doesn't do it justice, but we wanted to give you a little something. So thank you so much.
Thank
And
you
we'll miss
so
you.
much. Thank you. I really appreciate this. I
We're so happy
appreciate
for you.
Assemblymember Simon. She has just been an absolute support to CEC 15, as have all of our elected officials. And I appreciate this so much, and I'm humbled and love you all. Thank you so much, everyone, for all of your support all of these years. This work has only been done through the support of our entire community and coming together. And so congratulations to you all for coming together and creating such an amazing and successful model for education in New York City. So thank you so much. I appreciate you all.
Can you hold the citation for everyone?
Oh, sorry.
Next to the citation. Beautiful.
Sorry. Oh, thank you. Thank you.
And that's not all. That's not all. And now we have cake. To celebrate
Oh, yeah.
Camille's many years of service on this council. Camille served on the council for 8 years. She was instrumental in the creation of the diversity plan. She was instrumental she's really instrumental in everything. She was president for 6 years, and she has really just been just an amazing voice for equity, for advocacy, for knowledge building. And so I can't say enough about how wonderful Camille Casaretti has been to District 15. And now she will be able to share her knowledge with the high school council and move on from there to even more amazing things. If you're here tonight, please help yourself. It's a cake. Okay, so as others are having cake, I would like to bring up school budgets. And I think this is probably one of the most important issues that we have had. I'm dropping into the chat. Sassy, I see you here. Thank you for sharing these. I'm dropping into the chat a link to some videos that can help parents understand the way that school budgets work. It's a complex system, and tonight we will have a presentation by the superintendent that will be further enlightening. But one thing that I want to say is that school budgets were released about 2 weeks ago. There's still time to advocate for adjustments. And while we might not win, we can at least make some noise. The DOE has said that schools will be held harmless this year, but that is not true, because the new definition of hold harmless is that schools will be funded at last year's allocation level, at least at last year's allocation level. We know that last year there was a record number of budget appeals, as well as devastating cuts to programming and staff by schools administrators. And it's because they had to do it, because their budgets were so much lower than they had been previously. Additionally, this year, we are set to see the addition of 2 weights, one for students in temporary housing and the other one for concentration need. Furthermore, if schools are facing situations where they lack the funding to support special education classroom settings due to enrollment numbers, schools have the ability to ask for budget allocation appeals as soon as possible. Given all of that context, CEC 15 reached out to all of our schools principals to ask whether the budget allocations seem acceptable. We asked, do the enrollment numbers and their corresponding funding weights make sense? Are you still facing some sort of cuts or expected to maintain the cuts from the previous year? Do you expect to make special education breakage appeals, or even general appeals. So we have a small window to understand the impact of the budget allocation and then to advocate for whatever we might need before the city finalizes their budget deliberations. Please send us an email or contact your CEC liaison to give us information about what is going on at your school, what your school needs, so that we can do whatever it is that we can do to get the word out that schools are continuing to suffer cuts that are harming them. With that said, I will pass it to Superintendent Alvarez for the Contracts for Excellence presentation.
Should I come around this way?
Whatever you prefer. Here. I will, here, take my.
You sure?
Yeah.
Yeah, just click on, you can
Is
click on
it-
that one. Then I'll do the report after. Or you want me to do the presentation and then the report, or you want to do the report first?
The contracts.
Okay, great. So it's on the last slide and it's a link. There. Uh-oh. What happened there? No, it's not that.
I sent it as an attachment also.
As she pulls it, I'll just read what I'm expected to read here. So good evening, I'm Superintendent Alvarez. Given that this is the last meeting for the school year 2022-2023, I want to thank you for allowing me the time on your schedule to engage with you on these important items. This evening, I'm joined by our budget matter expert, Linda Perez. She is on virtual, who supports our schools with budgets and grant-related matters. In support of the Chancellor's goal of transparency, New York City Public Schools is committed to engaging each district to share highlights of important funding streams and critical work for fiscal year 2023-2024. This presentation specifically meets the Chancellor's goal by conducting this community engagement. During this session, our goal is to increase transparency by ensuring you, as critical community stakeholders, are made aware of important funding streams, fiscal plans, and other important work for the year ahead. Today, I will share our plan for 4 major topics: federal stimulus, state foundation aid, state contracts for excellence, and our proposed class size reduction plan, a new part of the contracts for excellence process. I will review each topic and provide the process for public comment for each. We also want to make sure that you are aware of the possible ways schools can use these resources. Again, thank you for allowing us time on your agenda today. Let's dive into this presentation as soon as I get the PowerPoint slide. Well, it's not on screen. This screen. Before we get to that, I'm just going to start. Today, we will discuss 4 major topics for the upcoming 23-24 school year. I will provide an overview of the funding and share dollar amounts allocated to the New York City Public Schools. I will also discuss how the funding will be allocated to schools and impose restrictions of how some funds are spent. At the end of each topic, we will share how you can provide comments on what I have presented. And the 4 major topics we will discuss are federal stimulus, state foundation aid, state contract for excellence, and class size. We ask that if you have specific feedback, public comment on information shared in this presentation, that you share that feedback by using the designated email address noted after each section we will cover. I will point out the designated email address at the conclusion of each funding stream section. Remember, there are 4 sections during this presentation. Our New York City Public Schools team will be taking public comments received into consideration in the coming weeks in alignment with the public process. Just give us a second to trying to pull up the PowerPoint as we speak. Are we trying to get it on here? Is that what we're doing? Shanice, are we trying to get it on? Oh, I can do it another way. Oh, you got it. I apologize, just one moment. Thank you, Ms. Odunsi. It's we're using a different computer to actually show the PowerPoint screens because the laptop you see me in front of is actually the acting president Nancy Randall's computer. There we go. Okay, if we could just turn, I'm going to tell you each time to slide. Right now I'm on slide 3. We will begin today's discussion with federal stimulus. Slide 3. Okay, so next slide. In March 2021, the president enacted the American Rescue Plan Act, also known as ARPA. As a result of the act, New York City received federal stimulus funding to fight the coronavirus pandemic effects on our system. The Department of Education received $8 billion. For school year 2023-2024, $1.9 billion of federal stimulus funding is remaining. There are a few things that are important to note. $4.8 billion supported activities from school years 21-22 school year through September 2024. 20% of ARPA funding must be used to address learning loss occurred during the pandemic when schools were not in session. School year 23-24, which begins July 1, is the last year New York City Public School will receive federal stimulus funding. In this presentation, we will discuss how this remaining $1.9 billion will be spent. Next slide. We would do this by continuing to support major initiatives, including Summer Rising. The New York City Public Schools has committed to $80 million in Summer Rising to provide approximately 110,000 elementary and middle school students with culturally relevant hands-on experience to strengthen their academic, social, and emotional skills, and will also provide support to high school students through summer programming. We will also continue our investment in school budgets by providing funding to schools still facing enrollment decline in the 23-24 school year as a result of the pandemic. In school year 23-24, $160 million is earmarked for schools facing enrollment declines. Enrollment decline has had a significant impact on our schools and its communities, and through the use of this funding, we'll be able to provide some relief for one more year. Next slide. In addition to continued investments for Summer Rising and enrollment declines mentioned on the previous slide, in the upcoming 23-24 school year, nearly $600 million of federal stimulus funding will continue to support significant investments. This slide provides a breakdown of the $600 million invested in 3 areas. Area number 1, over $456 million in early childhood to support the expansion of 3K provided by New York City Public School District schools and community-based organizations. Number 2, over $83 million for mental health supports, which includes social workers, guidance counselors, and school psychologists, which continues last year's investment. And number 3, $50 million to support special education recovery services, which are compensatory services for students with needs that were unavailable during the pandemic. Services are targeted at school-age students with disabilities. Next slide. Federal stimulus funding continues to support priorities from Chancellor Banks' administration, which include initiatives such as $65 million for contracted school nurses to continue to provide nursing at all New York City public schools buildings where New York City public school staff nurses aren't available to provide permanent coverage. $25 million to support arts education. Additionally, $16 million will be funded with one-time Title IV carryover money for a $41 million program in total. $28 million to expand career pathways programming. Additionally, 24.7 will be funded with one-time Title IV carryover for a total of $40 million for the programs. $15 million for Project Pivot, CBO provided violence interruption activities in high-need schools. $10 million for bilingual education classes and supports. $11 million for family engagement and translation and interpretation services. $7 million to literacy and dyslexia programming, which we have here in our district, 107 and 295. $6 million for digital teaching and learning experiences. $5 million to high impact tutoring, and $2 million to gifted and talented programming. Next slide. There is still a strong focus on prioritizing special populations in New York City public schools. For example, students in temporary housing, also known as STH. Additionally, students in bilingual education programs will benefit from these prioritizations. We aim to provide this targeted support in various ways. $98 million for special education pre-K, which includes support program stabilization for providers, extending provider hours to align with public school hours, and other related supports. $50 million for special education recovery services targeted at school-age students with disabilities, as previously discussed. $55 million investment in community schools, which is targeted at schools with high needs, including large populations of students in temporary housing. And $10 million for expanded bilingual education programs and supports will continue this upcoming school year. Next slide. Other key programming funded with federal stimulus dollars includes academic support, such as curriculum, building school investments, devices and IT support, and PSL expansion, to kind of name a few. This slide lists some dollar amounts earmarked to support some of the key programs just mentioned and others listed here on this slide. So I'll leave it up for just a second for you to review. Next slide. What are the next steps for stimulus funding? As a reminder, each topic we'll review today has a designated email for public comment. Please share your comments and feedback by using the Stimulus 2022 email address you see on the screen. Again, STIMULUS2022@schools.nyc.gov. The DOE must submit comments to New York State by July 1, so we ask that you submit your feedback by June 30th. Your feedback is taken into consideration as New York City Public Schools continues to plan for the upcoming school year. As a reminder, principals have received their 23-24 budgets, and school leadership teams are beginning their work with principals on budget priorities as plans for the upcoming year are still to be finalized. Next slide. Let's move on to the second funding stream being presented today, which is state foundation aid. As a reminder, there are three important funding streams being presented today. Next slide. In the New York State fiscal year 2022 enacted budget, the state committed to fully funding the foundation aid formula, phasing in its over 3 years. For this year's budget, the state made good on its commitment to fully fund the foundation aid formula. This year is the final year for phasing in foundation aid funding. In fiscal year 2024, foundation aid will increase by 5.5%, or a total of $493 million. We are now fully funded through the foundation aid formula, which is allocated by the state. Next slide. Of the total increase, I don't know what happened. Yeah, it is, but on the screen, it's showing each slide, all the slides. Yeah, that one, right there. The next one, the next one over it. Yeah, go out of that and go that one. Perfect. Oh, that's weird. I mean, I can still go. It's just harder for the people to read. That's all. Click on the The little presenter thing next to the CC on the bottom. That one. Nope. Okay, click on it again. Click on the 3 dots. Use slideshow. No, that's, yeah, there you go. Yeah, it's showing the slide. Okay. There you go. Perfect. Thank you. Of the total increase, the first 3%, or $268 million, may be used flexibly. This year, we intend to use this funding to support $120 million will be used to support new fair student funding weights that will provide targeted funding to schools with students in temporary housing and with high concentrations of students with additional needs. $100 million will be used to support the increase in mandated charter tuition costs, and $48 million will support growth in special ed costs and new schools. The foundation aid above 3% or $225 million is restricted and must be used for purposes eligible under Contract for Excellence, which will be addressed in the next section of this presentation. Again, we want to hear from you. Please share your comments and feedback by using the Foundation Aid email address you see on the screen, which is foundationaid@schools.nyc.gov. FOUNDATIONAID@schools.nyc.gov. We ask that you submit your feedback by June 30th of 2023. Next slide. We will now move on to the third and last funding stream being presented today, Contract for Excellence, also commonly known as C4E. Next slide. First, let me provide some background on Contracts for Excellence. Contracts for Excellence legislation was established as part of the 2007-2008 enacted state budget under Foundation Aid and requires that a portion of Foundation Aid be used for specific restriction purposes. Contract for Excellence requires that funding be allocated towards specific programs that raise the achievement of the students with the greatest educational need, including, but not limited to, those students with limited English proficiency, students in poverty, and students with disabilities. Funding allocated pursuant to Contract for Excellence is required to be spent on the following 6 program initiatives shown on your screen, and they are additional instructional time, also known as time on task, for example, before and after school programs and individualized tutoring, model programs for multilingual learners, for example, your L innovative programs, full day pre-kindergarten and kindergarten, class size reduction, teacher and principal quality initiatives. For example, mentoring of new staff members. I need to go to the next slide, but there it is. Okay. Next slide. There you go. Yeah, middle school restructuring. Yeah. Is that the? I did that one. The next slide. Yes, next slide. That one. Yeah. Middle school, high school restructuring. Is that? I'm going to slide before that. There you go. All right. Middle school, high school restructuring. I'm going to go a little further into that. Further, we are required by state law to annually develop through a public process a citywide contract for excellence and community school district contract for excellence. The public process is how parents, teachers, and other school community members and interested parties provide input about the citywide and community school districts contract for excellences and about the allocation of contract for excellence funding in their schools. Our public process includes this meeting, as well as the other meetings that superintendents will be conducting across the city with their respective CECs, and 5 borough hearings that will also be happening during this period of time. Although the contract for excellence process is not new, we have submitted a contract for excellence since 2007-2008, Under recent changes to state law, the timeline for the public process, including the district C4E presentations, has changed. We are now required to start the process no later than 30 days after the enactment of a state budget. And we are also required to provide notice of the public process 15 days prior to the first public hearing. State law requires that community school district contracts for excellence be presented by superintendents at CEC meetings to enact public comment on those C4E plans. To that end, we will be recording all comments made at this meeting. This important process will allow families and community members an opportunity to provide input about how their schools are funded and as part of their schools receiving this significant fund. It is an essential element in the Contract for Excellence plan that the New York City Public Schools submits to the state, which the state must approve in order for the New York City Public Schools to receive Contracts for Excellence funding. Next slide. As stated early in the presentation, a portion of the additional funding New York City is receiving will be restricted, and that is due to the change in the law. Any school aid increase above 3%, 6% is subject to be restricted and can only be used in one of 6 eligible uses discussed on the previous slide. Due to this change, the amount of foundation aid subject to the requirements of C4E increased by $225 million from $531 million to $756 million. The new law requires the New York City School District create and implement a plan to reduce actual class size over the next 5 years, beginning September 2023. The plan must be signed off on by the chancellor and the presidents of the unions representing the teachers and the principals. The class size plan and our class size working group will be discussed in more depth later in the presentation. Next slide. Now for the breakdown of the Contract for Excellence funding. Of the $756 million subject to Contract for Excellence, $182 million will remain unrestricted. Since 2007-2008, this funding has been used to support fair student funding and will continue in 23-24 school year. Were this funding to be used for other purpose, the DOE would not be able to continue funding all schools at 100% fair student funding. The remaining $574 million comprised of existing $349 million and an additional $225 million will be allocated as restricted funding for the use by schools within the 6 eligible uses previously discussed. Next slide. $574 million of restricted aid is to be broken out by 1, discretionary, and 2, targeted and maintenance of effort. For the discretionary pot, $429 million or 75% of restricted Contract for Excellence funds are released to 1,500 plus schools in late spring. This is an increase of $215 million over fiscal year 2023. Principals will work with their school leadership teams to plan the use of this funding for 23-24 school year in alignment with eligible program categories. They may choose to change the use of the funding or to maintain existing staffing positions or programs that were funded in 22-23 school year. The targeted and maintenance of effort funding, which is $145 million or 25% of restricted funds, will be targeted for specific programs and will maintain these existing programs. Schools received allocations were chosen based on overall student need and B, capacity to carry out the specific program. For example, $84.6 million, integrated co-teaching classrooms, you all know as ICT. $11.5 million for ASD programs or autistic spectrum disorder programs, ICT classrooms. $9 million for full day pre-K. New $5.5 million for PATH, $3 million for curriculum support, $0.8 million for iRead, and $30 million for summer programming, maintenance of support. Next slide. Let's take a look at the proposed allocation of restricted funds citywide first. So as you look at the chart, discretionary funds comes to $4.2 million, which is 74.84%. ICT targeted for schools must spend on this purpose only $84.6 million, which is 14.74%. ASD programs, $11.4 million at 2%. Pre-K, $8.9 million at 1.56%. PATH programs, $5.4 million at 0.96%. Curriculum support at $3 million, 0.54%. I read $775,000, which is 0.14%. And summer programming, maintenance of support, $30 million at 5.23%, which makes up the $573 million that I shared with you before, $574 million if estimated. Next slide. Let's take a look at the proposed allocation of restricted funds for our district, District 15. In discretionary funds, we have $11,552,824, which is roughly 68.58% of that funding. For ICT for targeted schools that must spend, we put $3.4 million at 20.46%. For the ASD programs that exist in our district, we put $416,536, which is 2.47%. For pre-K programs, to further those programs, we have $585,247, which is at 3.47%. For iRead, we have $67,535 or 0.40%. And for summer programming, $777,316, which is roughly 4.61%, which equates to the $16,845,821 that we have, which equates to the 100% for District 15 for the proposed allocation of the restricted funds for District 15. Next slide. We will take public comments into account in the coming weeks as we continue to work towards complying with this mandate. The deadline for submitting public comment will be August 11th. Please share your comments and feedback by using the C4E email address you see on the screen, contractsforexcellence@schools.nyc.gov. contractsforexcellence@schools.nyc.gov. My counterpart, Linda Perez, has actually added those into the PowerPoint, into the chat room for those that want it in the chat. You'll have that access in the chat. Next slide. Now we're moving on to the fourth major topic. We already discussed foundation aid, stimulus, and contract for excellence funding streams. Now we will wrap up by discussing the class size reduction plan and the class size working group. We will share more about the new class size legislation that you may have heard about, as well as the work the New York City Public Schools are doing around public engagement related to the implementation of this law via the class size working group. Next slide. First, I'm going to give you a brief overview of the law itself, including the basic requirements and the timeline for compliance. In September 2022, Governor Hochul enacted Chapter 556 of the laws of 2022, which requires the New York City School District to create a 5-year class size reduction plan for all K-12 community districts and high schools. Chapter 556 sets forth requirements that apply only to the New York City School District, including new class size caps for all public K-12 community districts and high schools, a class size reduction plan, which must be approved by the chancellor and the respective presidents of the United Federation of Teachers and the Council of School Supervisors and Administrators, the unions representing New York City School District teachers and principals respectively, and submitted as part of the contract for excellence. A prescribed timeline for the public process for the development, posting, and submission of the contract for excellence. Annual implementation reports on the status of the class size reduction plan, and penalties in the form of reduced state funding if adequate progress to reduce class size is not made. The law imposes specific class size caps within the New York City School District for the first time. Prior legislation required a plan to reduce average class sizes and did not set forth specific average class cap sizes. Class size caps had previously been set subject to collective bargaining agreements between New York City Public Schools and the UFT and could be exceeded in certain circumstances. This new law prescribes class size caps of 20 students in grades K through 3, 23 students in grades 4 through 8, and 25 students in grades 9 to 12, and 40 students in physical education and performing groups in all grades. For next year, 20% of our classrooms citywide must meet the caps that I just noted. Special education classes are not subject to the caps. We are currently assuming that ICT classes are considered general education classes and will need to meet the caps. Chapter 556 allows for 4 types of exemptions to the class size targets: space, over-enrolled students, license area shortages, and severe economic distress. These exemptions must be approved by the chancellor and the respective presidents of the UFT and CSA as part of the class size reduction plan. In the event that the DOE and the unions are unable to reach agreements on the exemptions, the law mandates an arbitration. In addition, UFT may negotiate higher class sizes in elective and specialty classes if the majority of staff approve the increase. We understand that the law presents many implementation challenges. To that end, the chancellor has sought to convene a working group to ensure that perspectives from a wide range of stakeholders inform our strategy for implementation. Additionally, we welcome public comments on the class size reduction plan. Next slide. The DOE projects that staffing costs alone could be roughly $1.3 billion annually once schools are fully in compliance with the class size mandates. The School Construction Authority estimates that the capital cost of complying with the mandates will total $30 to $35 billion. Within the $1.3 billion estimate, there is an assumption that schools will need to realign budgets as they work to increase the number of teachers hired. The capital cost estimate includes funding for creating new seats through new buildings or annexes, converting administrative or other non-instructional spaces to instructional spaces, and other costs associated with increasing the number of seats. Next slide. In February 2023, the chancellor announced that New York City Public Schools would be convening a class size working group to gather input related to implementing Chapter 556. In late February, we released an interest survey for participation in this class size working group to allow anyone to express their interest in joining. From those who expressed interest, New York City Public Schools built a working group reflecting diverse perspectives and experiences from across New York City, taking into account individuals' geographic representation, experience as a parent or guardian of a New York City Public School student, educator, advocate, researcher, or other stakeholder, while also considering individuals representing different school levels and size, as well as organizational affiliations. I'm happy to share that group is largely comprised of parents and parent leaders, in addition to principals, teachers, and superintendent representatives, and various community stakeholders. Class size working group meeting minutes and materials are posted regularly for public review at the site listed on the slide you see there. Linda Perez has dropped it in the link. I'll give a second so that everyone can see that. Next slide. We will consider all feedback received on our proposed plan during the public process. The deadline for submitting public comments will be August 11th, 2023. Those who wish to provide feedback may submit their comments by email to classsize@schools.nyc.gov. CLASSIZE@schools.nyc.gov. Next slide. Please note all the different public comment emails for each of the presentations I've provided today and their deadline. This concludes the presentation. I want to thank you for your time. I'll let you return to your very important end of the year meeting agenda. But before I do, I want to thank this community for all the hard work and collaboration this year. I want to thank President Cazaretti and interim president, or was you voted in? Did I miss that? So our acting president, Nancy Randall, who's been doing a phenomenal job as well. I wish you all a good summer and look forward to a successful 23-24 school year, even though I'm about to give the superintendent's report shortly.
You have to get a public comment.
Yeah.
Yes.
Whenever you're ready.
Okay, so I am going to take over as parliamentarian. My name is Nakia Mahasa Brown. I am going to first start off by reading again the rules of engagement. We don't have time. Okay, so I'm going to give everyone 1 minute.
Yes.
We can start with public comment. Anyone here in person would like to comment or question? No? Okay. Next, I'm going to take a look at the chat. If anyone has a question or comment on Zoom, please raise your hand. Okay, we have Brad Alter. Brad, you can unmute yourself. How are we going to do that?
Hi there, everyone. It's okay if I just start?
Okay, yes, okay, we can hear you, Brad.
I'd like to thank the superintendent for the presentation. My name is Brad Alter. I'm a proud parent of a rising first grader at PS 130. I'm also a middle school educator, special educator. I did all my teaching in District 19. Currently a member of the class size working group as a parent. And I'm a member rep for the United Federation of Teachers and was deeply involved in the campaign to get this law passed. And we're not there yet. Basically, I'll try and be brief, but something I want to, just bring to everyone's, the front of their mind is when we were campaigning to get this law passed, we had a town hall of educators. And something that really took my breath away was that teachers and educators were talking about, because of the reduced class size during the pandemic, they were able to do some of the most meaningful work of their careers. And that really kind of left me speechless, because this was such a difficult time and painful time for people that we just heard it again and again. And I think that just goes to show how important an issue this is. I can tell you as a parent, but also as a teacher, especially a special educator who taught ICT, that the class sizes that are currently capped in in the U of T contract, like, they're just not sufficient to do the kind of work that our students deserve. And when I look at the plan that the DOE put forth, I have two really deep concerns. One is that while I think everyone's in agreement that we can meet these benchmarks and get the money from Albany in years 1 and 2, in order to stay in compliance in years 3, 4, and 5, we need to start doing work now. And I don't see any evidence of that in this plan. In particular, how we staff up to meet the requirements in years 3, 4, and 5, and how we work our capital plan and also identify additional space in years 3, 4, and 5. And I don't understand why the plan that exists doesn't even address, kind of a long-term plan. It's more of a skeleton. I understand the working group as a member, has a role in that, but to see it not even being addressed, it just seems extremely, it's puzzling to me. And this is a really powerful opportunity. People have spent so much of their lives as advocates and educators fighting for this. And to see the city have such a deficit mindset, to use their language, when it comes to this, we hear all these reasons why it can't happen or why there isn't enough money. And this is just, our kids deserve the same class sizes as kids in the suburbs have. And this is really something we should be excited about. And I'm excited about it because I really think that, I think the chancellor is correct that we need ways to bring people back to the system. And, people vote with their feet. That's why people pay for private school, is the class size. That's why people schlep all the way out to the suburbs. It's class size. And our students deserve it. So let's get it.
Thank you, Brad. Want to address?
I'm not going to answer any questions because the questions are for the comments. They're just to make comments.
Okay.
But I'll answer a question if I can.
Okay,
if
no.
he says.
Okay. All right. So, Johanna.
Hi there,
Unmute
everybody.
and share your comment.
Okay. Hello, everybody. It's nice to see you. It's all the familiar faces, and congratulations again to Camille. You're a hero. You're my hero. I wanted to comment on the C4E allocation for this year, the additional allocation that came in the 2024. I'm, as you guys probably know from whenever I come here, I talk about specifics of numbers, and I'm very concerned about the distribution of those additional C4E 2024 funds, the 215 million. I think I'm getting that number correctly. I want to know what the methodology was for distributing those funds. And in particular, because are they in line with the requirements that they go to the needy, that 50%, that 75% of the funds go to the top 50% neediest schools, according to the state's requirements? When I look at it, it does not meet by any criteria those. And I'll give an example. My child's school, Park Slope Collegiate, it got 146,000 of the regular C4E funds, and then the extra funds, it got a little bit less than half as much, maybe 69K. But when I look at Brooklyn Tech, nothing against Brooklyn Tech, but when I look at Brooklyn Tech got $400,000 in the regular funds, which yes, it's big. So let's talk about that. But its 2024 allocation was 1,304,000 of the extra funds. And I don't understand how that is in alignment with the goals of meeting the kids who are the neediest in terms of students with disabilities, multilingual learners, and students with low academic achievement, all of which Brooklyn Tech falls in the first percentile of neediest schools. Nothing against Brooklyn Tech. I'm also concerned that these funds were included in the hold harmless allocation. This was the number that when the DOE was adding up how much money schools get and deciding whether or not schools get extra money or not, those funds were included in the hold harmless. And while the DOE said, there's this big asterisk on those funds that they might need to be redistributed, if they do get redistributed, given that most of those funds are going into teacher salaries, what's going to happen? And so those are my questions, very technical and comments, but I really do want to alert everybody that this does not seem in alignment with the spirit of Contract for Excellence. And it also is, I really encourage everybody to look at the hold harmless allocation specifically for their schools and look at the numbers and how they added up and ask the principal, does this pass the sniff test?
Thank you.
That's all.
Thank you so much. Janet, Marta, would you like to come on and share your comments?
Hi, can you hear me?
Just one moment.
Hi.
Janet, go ahead again. Janet, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
Can you hear us, Shannon?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Hi, can you hear me?
Can you try to speak now, Jen?
Can you hear me? Hi, yes, I'm outside, so it's going to be a little loud. My question is specifically for the funds allocated in District 15 for ASC programming. I see there's about $16,000 allocated. Is this only for the programs that are already established within District 15 or for the programs that have been approved by PEP to come in the next year or so?
It's my understanding. Oh.
Hold on, I can't hear you. That's a problem.
Just mute her. There you go. Can you hear me now? All right. It's my understanding that this funding is for what's approved for the next fiscal year of 23-24. As you all know, we committed to including a middle school in the Sunset Park section, which will be housed at the old site of 516 when they move to the new site. That program, as committed by the Sunset Park PAR, was to ensure that we had the middle school horizon program to stay in Sunset Park from 24 for the middle school students to be able to go into that school in the 24 school year. So that allocation is for next school year. For
Okay,
this coming school year.
I know one of the presentations, the biggest conversation was that it was approved, but they were still waiting for fundings in regards to the program. I just want to make sure that that's being worked on and how the Horizon parents that are anticipating the space can help participate in that process.
And let me get Brenda to get back to you on that. I'm going to get some information and then have her email you with that information, Janet.
Yes, and can people just email promptly? That would be great.
Thank you, Janet. Okay, so I want to check in on the interpreters. And are there any questions or comments on the Mandarin line?
It's in minutes. Let me check. Is Mandarin not have any parent? Any comment for them? Okay, no parent respond.
Thank you.
Don't have any further comment or question.
Thank you.
Okay.
Comments on the Spanish line?
There's no question at this moment in the Spanish line.
Thank you. How about Bangla?
There are no questions or comments on the Bangla line as well.
Thank you so much. Okay, so I'm going to move straight over to the CEC member comments. Vincent, typed a question in the chat. Vincent, do you want to come on and ask make a comment?
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, thanks for the opportunity to ask a question. So my first question is really on the $10 million allocated for the bilingual education class and support. Can this fund be used for dual language program in the school with high L populations?
Yes, when this is, hold on. So when this allocation is funded, when they talk about bilingual programs, that also includes TDE and includes dual language. So yes.
Thank you. And my second question is under the C4E, right? There's a model program for multilingual learner. Do you mind elaborate a little bit what that means and whether or not that include dual language programs?
You're right on. It does include dual language programs. That's what they're talking about, the model programs for supporting multilingual learners, and dual language is one of those programs.
Got it. Right, thank you.
Thank you, Vincent. Are there any other CC members with comments?
Mute myself, huh? Or should I?
Yes.
Okay. I want to just go back to the COVID relief funds. And if I'm not mistaken, if I go back in time to the end of 21-22, the end of last summer, I just remember there was like $4 billion left of COVID relief funds, and there was a big conversation, and there were hearings about how to use that money. This presentation stated that at the end of this school year, 2022-23, the remainder is 1.8 billion.
1.9.
1.9 billion. So did we spend, does that report say how much we spent? Does it give a number for how much we spent in COVID relief funds this year?
Not on this report, but you can email that comment to the email address to get a response. They should be able to respond.
Okay. And my other, I guess, comment is the foundation aid came about through the Campaign for Fiscal Equity lawsuit. And this is the first time I'm ever seeing highlighted in a presentation the amount of mandated charter tuition that is coming out of the foundation aid. I've always been aware that there was charter tuition coming out of that money, but this is the first time I've ever seen it highlighted in a report, and I'm really surprised to see that. And I just want to highlight that for everybody and repeat that $100 million of mandated charter tuition is coming out of the foundation aid, and the original intent of the Campaign for Fiscal Equity, I do not believe, was to support charter schools. So I just want to highlight that for the public. Thank you so much.
Nancy?
Okay, thank you. And so I just, thank you so much, Superintendent Alvarez, for the presentation. It's robust and there's a lot of information. I encourage everyone to click on that link to look at it more closely. The one thing that I wanted to bring up, which really stuck out to me, is related to class size matters, and one of the things that I didn't know is that there is the possibility for negotiations between the UFT and the CSA and the DOE based on various, what's the term I'm looking for? Like if something, what was the term that was used? If there's some unexpected reason why there might need to be
Exemptions.
Thank you. Based on the exemptions. Whenever a policy is implemented where there's the potential for exemptions, right? Then there's the worry that the policy might not be implemented as it's meant to be implemented, right? Or at least as those who envisioned the policy want it to be implemented. And so with that said, I want to mention that today, Mayor Adams has announced the contract deal with the teachers union that allows for more remote learning. And the remote learning opportunities would begin at 25% of high schools next year and would gradually grow to all high schools in the 2027-28 school year. And the mayor himself said, these are bold moves, initiatives. Look, you all aren't going to appreciate what I'm doing until I'm done. You're going to look back and say this guy was just ahead of what other people want. This is New York. We lead from the front, and that is what this chancellor and this union president is doing. And I think that when I hear that, that immediately worries me, because on Friday, we transitioned to remote learning for New York City schools that were opened. That was a difficult transition for my child. I'm sure it was a difficult transition for many people's children. I think as Brad also said earlier, teachers mentioned that that year that kids were that year that kids were in smaller classes during the pandemic was helpful for many children. I know it was helpful for my child. So it worries me very much that we have a mayor who has a bill that allows for exemptions that could then allow for all of this to, instead of going in the direction that we as parents envision it, smaller classes for our kids will instead become something just like a hydra that we aren't expecting. So I'm putting that out there. Hopefully others will join the fight with me to, and with this council to not let that happen. So thank you. And I'll pass it back to the parliamentarian.
Thank you, Nancy. Anyone else? Okay, great. So we are going to move on to attendance report. Thank you.
It's the original budget. Oh, yeah, it doesn't need to be behind that. Can everyone hear me, or? I'm just gonna ask, can anyone hear me from the chat itself? Can I have, I guess? That's fine. So I just wanted to honor and celebrate Juneteenth, which is on June 19th, this coming Monday. A happy Father's Day to those who are celebrating fathers. Eid, as well as June being Pride Month for the month of June. So anyone who's saying any of these particular things, I want to lift you and let you know that we're here with you as well. Next slide. I'm going to go over a few things. Celebrating and honoring, which I talked a little bit about. I'm going to show some district events and school-specific activities that are happening. I want to do some quick updates on the sub-zone 3 of what we've done in curriculum planning, a year in review, summarizing updates, a look ahead for 23-24, and fiscal year 24 budget and policy engagement. If we can go to the next slide. First, we want to thank President Casaretti for your 8 years of service and advocacy. She doesn't know this yet. I know she's going to be working with CCHS as being appointed under public advocate appointee, but I will be reaching out to her on a number of occasions for support with work with not only the new CEC coming in, but also in other things that she's been very supportive with, including WXY and some of the initiatives that we have. So, Camille, even though you are moving to CCHS, you're always going to be at 15, and I'm going to expect that support from you. With that being said, next slide. We on District 15 recognized our school food service, crossing guards, school safety, and custodial staff across multiple schools in our district at MS 88 on June 1st. It was a day of recognition. We were excited to raise all of these wonderful people who support our system across the system. Are you still hearing an echo? I can whichever one gonna work.
See, okay, now it's on.
Okay.
So then turn
All
it on.
right.
Everything else should be
Oh,
on.
that must have been, okay. Is that clear now? Okay, great. So I wanted to recognize all those school aides, school safety, custodial staff, crossing guards, and school food services. Next year, we'll be celebrating our paraprofessionals, school aides, and other staff members, community coordinators, and so on and so forth across our district. We also, next slide. So here are some of the people who we recognized. We want to thank City Council member Aviles as well as Hanif for also providing citations for each member. Each member got a plaque from the district office, but the citations from the City Council members was great to see. So we want to thank everybody for celebrating and the school leaders who were there to support. Next slide. I also want to thank on June 15th, we had a family day on June 3rd. I want to thank Principal Spalding as well as Principal Bueno for hosting in Sunset Park. As you can see on the top right picture, there's still an echo. Okay. Oh, no, I'm sorry. I thought there was, yeah. So we want to thank those particular PCs who have consistently gone above and beyond in supporting, and there were other PCs as well. We wanted to thank the families that participated, school leaders, administrators, parents, community members. As you could see, it was an amazing day of learning. Next slide. Of performances from several schools across our district. Next slide. To having an after outdoor event where we had a mini carnival where food and snacks and activities for the kids were available. And so we were excited about doing that. It was our first year doing these particular events. So we were particularly excited about that. Next slide. Inclusive and affirming school communities. And so on the next slide, I just wanted to point out that Juneteenth is on Monday. And while that's being said, on June 20th, Brooklyn New School, PS 32, the host school here, and PS 58 will be joining together to celebrate Juneteenth in an immersive and interactive music share. They will also include singing and discussions about what freedom means in our community today. And so we are really excited about the work that they're doing there, and several other schools will be reporting on what they're doing. Next couple of slides are what some different schools across our district are doing for Pride Month as they celebrate Pride Month. Next slide. Just giving a few different ideas of what different schools have been doing. This is BHS, our middle school, high school, working on some events with their actual clubs that they have. Next slide. This is PS 58 and the work that they had done on June 1st around this particular work. 676, who's done a talent show around this particular work. It's going to have it on Friday. And then we have a year in review. The year in review, if you can go to the next slide, is a few of the highlight of district events and initiatives that we've implemented this year. We did a call to action. Schools across the district participated by coming together and bringing coats, clothes, food, hygienic products for all the new incoming students that we were getting in our students in temporary housing. We did this event at PS 24. We had multiple school performances and families engaged. We did the Urban Debate League across the entire district. We won against competition across districts. We were #1. Our kids are engaged in this process, and we're working with the electeds to bring this process to also elementary schools next year. We did our project-based learning showcase where students met at Brooklyn Army Terminal to showcase their projects across the district. Every school participated, which was amazing. We had our parent symposium and learning together, which you saw images of, where parents and students from the district participated in workshops and students' performances and a carnival. And we had our Youth Equity Congress, a day of dialogue where students across the district met to discuss how they can be agents of change across our district. And our next slide. We talked about district events and initiatives. We did a recognition ceremony that I told you about. We had the monthly town halls. We had the Nets basketball clinics that started this year and will continue into next year, hopefully touching all of our schools by next year. We have the family room to support the community that has its own room with activities, materials, as well as access to computers and other things in our family room, as well as data-wise. We sent 5 schools that are there now with their teams. So we have a total of 30 staff members across our district, principals included, around a week-long PD at Harvard, where they're understanding how to use data to improve student learning outcomes, especially for our marginalized students, and that's happening now this week. Next slide. And just a few quick updates. I'm not going to go into this whole thing, but I just wanted to ensure that everyone understood that enrollment office is now working to put flyers in the NYCHA housing and supporting principals with clear communication to share with families as needed around subzone 3, which is ensuring and letting the community know that priority to applicants will be eligible for free or reduced lunch based on family income, applicants living in temporary housing or public housing, and or English language learners for 30% of the seats per the rezoning plan for 58, 29, 261, 38, 32, 15, and 676. Next slide. Quick reminders, New York City Reads. We are in the process of phase 2, where school leaders and administrators are going to help determine which of the 3 curricular we're going to be using across the district. Stay tuned for this. We're working with the Principals Advisory already, who has given us recommendations. We're planning on sharing some of those, and we'll go into more details with our CEC counterparts and share that information and get feedback and input from you as well. This will probably happen in the next iteration of the CEC going forward. But obviously, as parents in the community, your voices are still expected to be heard and wanted. Next slide. Summarizing updates. So June 15, DYCD will determine the number of CBO seats available after accounting for mandated, retained students, and families not accepting their Summer Rising offers, as you heard a little bit earlier. From the 16th to the 22nd, Summer Rising sites that have added seats will begin to do outreach to families that applied and did not receive an offer for siblings, student connected to the CBO already, and all other students. June 23rd, any additional available seats will be posted on newyorkcity.gov/Summer Rising. And then June 23rd, the Summer Rising portal reopens, and families who have not applied for a seat may also do so. Please check out the family-facing site for up-to-date information on the phase 2 enrollment period. And just so that you also know, I've been working with Central as of last CEC meeting to try to get additional Summer Rising seats with some more CBOs that could still provide the CBO services in the 6 sites that we have open. So again, it never had anything to do with the number of sites. It had to do with the number of CBOs. And so that's what we're working against. But we've put in our request for additional seats when they asked, and we're hoping to get more seats. And if we do, I'll inform you by email so that you could share with the community, and we'll obviously certainly share with the principals in charge, the principals, and the parent coordinators going forward. Next slide. Looking ahead for 23-24. So if you can reach them, you can teach them. We're going to focus on making sure that this is at the core of what we're discussing for our children. And the mentor text that we're going to be using across the district are the Improvement Science Handbook, which is an inquiry-based approach at supporting students, the MTSS process, which ensuring that we're not just using academics as the sole data points to use to support how do we improve outcomes for students. So this includes social emotional, this includes qualitative data, observing of students, having conversations, understanding their whole dynamic as a whole child so that we can actually implement practices that are going to support them. And then data-wise, we send a whole team. We're not expecting to implement data-wise next year. We're expecting to do a year of learning for our schools. The only 5 schools that will be implementing data-wise fully would be 230, Maria de la Región, Tina at 131, 32, which is here. That is Denise Watson, 321, Liz Phillips, and I always forget the last one. Wanda Ramirez from PS1. Yes. So those are the 5 schools that have been selected. In addition to the 5 schools with 5 team members each, we sent a district staff of 5 people so that they can come back with doing some of that work as well. Next slide. Grants for the 23-24 school year. I'm going to talk about what we've been awarded and then what we're applying for. So we have some rollover monies from the grant, from the INSEP grant. We're going to continue the work around Orton Gillingham. We're going to continue the work around Metamorphosis. All the work that we've been doing already, we've rolled over to some supports for next school year. We just got awarded the New School Venture Fund. This funding is going to go towards the new middle school in Sunset Park. This is separate from the Horizon allocation. This is separate from whatever the program is doing. My team decided to apply for it. So we were supposed to have a principal. So they made me the principal temporarily as a superintendent. But we were just awarded that grant. So we're excited that that new school will have $250,000 to implement towards arts programs, music programs, whatever they decide that they're going to do as a school community. It's not for me to decide, it's for them to decide how innovative they're going to be. We've applied for the Mitigating Trauma Grant. That's the bullying prevention, coaching, training, and resources for 10 schools across our district, and we spread it across the district, so there's support across the district. We applied for the SAMHSA grant, which is the $1.8 million for up to 5 years, focused on partnering with NYU in placement of a mental health clinician, case managers, and streamlining psychiatric services for students and families virtually through teletherapy and all, 4 clinicians and 4 case managers that will be placed at 2 sites, one on this side of the district and one on the other side of the district, to provide mental health supports across our district if we're awarded that grant. And the last one is a DOJ grant. It's a violence prevention for $1 million up to 3 years, focusing on hiring a SAPIS, more SAPIS counselors, SEL social workers, and school counselors at selected schools that may need the additional resources at their school community. Fingers crossed, we'll get these 3 grants. We've always received the next slide. We've always received an MBK grant. Go back. We've always received an MBK grant. They've re-streamlined what the MBK grant looks like based on state accountability and other measures. So there are 3 sections. Early childhood. We're looking at closing the gap, making sure that kids can read by grade level by 3rd grade, and there are some resources that we're thinking about utilizing for that work. The second section is developing our readers and writers throughout the disciplines. So we're going to try to figure out closing the gaps for struggling readers at the middle school and high school level, and then ensuring equitable access to high quality schools and programs. And then the last part is the financial literacy education. We're looking at bringing Rock the Street Wall Street, which is a financial literacy partnership for middle schools and high schools, to engage them in what it means to invest in stock markets, and looking at financial literacy and building their capacity to understand what it means to save and how to utilize their funding, and thinking about, maybe the car is not the thing they want to buy when they graduate, but more about saving the money for the house that's going to actually grow in appreciation as opposed to depreciation per year to year. And that's a grant that's up to $300,000. We applied on time. We should be hearing at some point in August, and we're excited about that. At that point, I think the next slide said Q&A, and I'll stop there.
All right, thank you, Superintendent Alvarez. That was a fantastic end of year presentation. I'm going to open the meeting to public comments. Anyone here like to comment? I don't see anyone. Okay. We're going to move straight to Zoom. Are there anyone on the call that would like to share a comment? Please raise your hand. There was a comment in the chat from Laura Espinoza. I wondered if you wanted to come on and share it for the public.
I can read it if you want.
Yes.
It says, los padres hispanos deben de ser escuchados y respetados de la misma forma de su círculo de amigos. Señor Álvarez, seguimos esperando su respuesta a los emails enviados. So it says, the Hispanic parents should be heard and respected at the same form of your circle of friends. Superintendent Alvarez, we continue waiting for your response to the emails that have been sent. So there have been some emails that have been sent to me that are addressing a particular issue at a particular school. That has been handled from people on my team, Christine Farrell, who's the family leadership coordinator, as well as Brenda Diaz. What I will say, what I will say in English, and I'll repeat it in Spanish for Laura, what I will say is that if she or anyone else would like to meet directly with me, we can easily schedule that with Brenda, and I'm more than happy to meet with any of my parents around any particular subject. And I just want to clarify, because I know things get lost in context, the idea that I do things with my circle of friends compared to other families, first and foremost, I want to caution with that, because I am Hispanic myself, and I think it's a disrespect to align myself that because I may not have responded to a particular email that I'm not or I'm disingenuous about my relationship with the Latino community. So I want to be clear that that is not the case. There are protocols that are set in place, and some of them are using my family leadership and family support coordinator. With 22,645 students in this district, if every parent I sat down to speak to individually, that's why we have team members of family support coordinators and family leadership coordinators. I respect every family in my district, and I will continue to respect every family in my district. And any parent who's wanted to meet with me directly, I've been more than welcome to meet with any parent directly. I've scheduled meetings. We have done this, but the process has always been to try to go through my family leadership and family support coordinator, because they might be able to curtail certain things. If in the event it's not addressed, then I'm more than happy to address them. But La Señora Laura has her hand up, so I'd like for her to, if you don't mind, speak as she wishes. So Laura?
Buenas, ¿me puede escuchar? Perfecto, muchas gracias. Bueno, primerito quiero hablar sobre de lo que van a abrir la Mira School aquí en la 516. Me gustaría saber que no pasa lo mismo con la otra escuela, cómo van a hacer las admisiones o ya van a tener van a venir con admisiones bajo la agenda como siempre lo han hecho. Eso es mi única pregunta. ¿Cómo transparencia en las admisiones? Más información para los padres, cómo y dónde, cuándo deben matricular, porque es en septiembre y eso nos gustaría ser parte, como la iniciativa que tomamos y pedimos esa escuela. Nosotros necesitamos ser parte y que los padres ahora sí sean incluidos los niños de la comunidad, porque como sabemos hay muchos niños que aún siguen saliendo del distrito para tener el apoyo adecuado a las necesidades que ellos tienen. Eso es mi pregunta.
Basically say what Laura is asking. She's asking about the middle school that's going to be placed at the 516 site that was requested to be placed there. She wants to know what the admissions process is going to be for that particular school. She wants to ensure that the parents are informed about how they can actually place or matriculate their students or their children in the admissions process at the particular school. So yes, the things are, las cosas van a continuar. I'm going to say it in Spanish so she hears it first and then translate because I want to speak in her native language first. So sí, por ejemplo, el ASD Horizon Program sí va a continuar en esa escuela. Esa fue la primera razón que hicimos este programa. So sí, eso va a existir en la 516, en el campus de 516. La matriculación va a ser como son todas las escuelas en middle school en Distrito 15 que van a ser de lotería. Pero niños para ASD program es completamente diferente porque ellos van a mover del elementary para la escuela intermedio. So, eso no va a afectar a esos niños. En la comunidad, muchos niños van a poder aplicar. Esa aplicación va a ser para el próximo año. So, usted debe de ver en el middle school admissions que nosotros vamos a hacer una hoja bueno, no una hoja, una presentación de el proceso de las escuelas de intermedio de una presentación para el distrito completo para que todo el mundo oiga la misma información. Lo vamos a tener en los lenguajes para que los padres puedan entender y los niños van a aplicar como todos los niños aplican por los programas en nuestro distrito. So what I'm explaining to her is that at 516, we are working towards making sure the ASD program is there. That was one of the main reasons for approving the middle school so soon because the middle school wasn't really slated till 26. We slated it for 24 to start there, and we did it with the intent of ensuring that we're going to have the Horizon program. So you better believe I'm going to fight for that Horizon program, but it's expected. It's going to be for the students who are currently at 24, who will easily automatically have the seat at this particular middle school. As it relates to the enrollment of that particular school in the admissions process, for the 6th grade, it should be in the guide for next school year. And we're creating a PowerPoint presentation that's a district-wide PowerPoint presentation with our student service manager and our social worker in terms of ensuring that the counselors are using the same message. One of the things that was brought up by CEC is that some schools had different messages when they were presenting to parents about middle school process. So we moved that away and we're creating one process for the district to use one PowerPoint to present the same information. So, and as I stated to Lara, and just like any middle school in District 15, they will have the lottery-based process. Does that take leeway into that side of the district versus this side? Probably. It's how the lottery process goes, and I'm going to follow whatever process already exists. I think we are off because the computer died. That's okay. I'll jump in. I didn't realize it comes down. It's okay. Okay, can everyone hear me now? I hope everyone heard that part. ¿Sí le aclaré la pregunta o la contesta, Laura?
Sí, muchísimas gracias y como siempre.
Sí, un momentico. Otra vez, por favor.
Sí, muchísimas gracias y como siempre le digo, necesitamos poco más de información con anticipación. Y lo de otro que usted mencionó hace rato, usted se siente ofendido, usted no se imagina cómo yo me siento ofendida. Acerca de ese tema, yo no creamos los papás, sino crearon ustedes. No hay una comunicación clara y yo sí me gustaría sentar como lo debieran haber hecho desde un comienzo, sentar y buscar una solución antes de esto que sea grande. Yo estoy dispuesta a sentar, pero los mensajes que estamos mandando back and forth es muy confuso, están cambiando constantemente. Eso no tiene que continuar. Nosotros aquí no estamos dividiendo, nosotros lo que queremos es llegar a una solución. ¿Por qué? Porque nosotros debemos dar ese ejemplo a los estudiantes, a no dividir, a no crear grupos, a no hacer bullying unos a otros. Yo estoy dispuesta a sentar, usted no se imagina cómo a mí me hicieron sentir ese día y yo estoy dispuesta a sentarme con ustedes y hablar, pero me gustaría que ustedes arreglen en la oficina y no crean más conflictos entre nosotros.
So let me explain what she's saying. So there's a situation at a particular school that she was running as an elected member, and there was a process that went with the voting. There was some irregularities that were reported by a particular constituency that's a voting member at the school, and she reported it, and we had to follow Chancellor's regulations. And because the process didn't seem to have gone the way it should have went originally, Laura felt very disrespected and felt very uncomfortable at the way she was addressed, and felt very uncomfortable with the way it was presented to the community. And it felt disrespectful to her, and it also felt disrespectful to the other members of the community that actually came out and spent their time to actually do the voting. She's requesting that I sit with her so that there can be more clarity and explanation, because every time she hears more and more about it, it seems like there's a different response that's being shared with her. So I am going to, I don't know what happened there. I can tell you that an email came to me as part of Chancellor's regulations when a parent makes a formal written grievance to a process. You have to follow the rules, and that's what was done. I don't know if it was communicated in that particular way. My understanding that the communication was there. So I am publicly going to apologize to Laura, who I feel I have a good relationship with. So I will apologize directly as a superintendent. Listen, whether it's my fault or not fault as a superintendent, it's always going to be my fault. So at the end of the day, I want to apologize to you publicly here for having to have gone through that. I will apologize to you in front of your community so that the community understands that it had nothing to do with you and there was nothing that you did wrong, and clarifying this situation for you. What I'm going to ask is for Brenda to reach out to Laura to schedule some time so that I can meet with Laura and anybody else who would like to meet with me at a mutually scheduled time. And if I have to go to Sunset Park, I can do that as well. So Brenda, you can reach out to Laura for that. That would be great. And then I think, I think Janet.
Okay. Well, you can invite her.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Janet.
Ms. Alvarez, can you hear me? Yes. Just to touch back on the same topic, not to name names in school, but it's completely disrespectful for school community and for those that were on the committee, for those that were nominated and voted in, to hear about this news through Class Dojo. Conversations should have happened where everyone could have come to an agreement and understanding of what transpired and how it can be corrected. Because at all times, the conversation was we were following PS 24 bylaws, and we were following, name the school, and we were following the chancellor's regulations. So at some point, the communication should have been in person to those involved and to those that were affected. Not there was an error and now it's on Class Dojo, and for families that were participating to find out that way. It's completely disrespectful.
Yeah, Janet, Janet, I don't disagree with you. If that's the way that happened, I don't disagree with you. It shouldn't have just been let out through Class Dojo in the manner in which you're sharing. I just want to give credence to making sure that we can have a conversation about it, because I want to make sure that everyone's on the same page as to what happened, because I'm not saying you're wrong, but I do know that there's side A, side B, and then somewhere in the middle is where side C lies, right? And so not saying that anyone is saying anything wrong, but I'd like to get the clarity of that. And I'm going to move forward from this, but I'd like to get the clarity in that by having the meeting and getting the perspective of what happened from your perspective, as well as what happened from the perspective on the opposite side, and figure out how we come to a mutual agreement. There's no reason why I have a school where a community is really that vested in being part of the parent leadership, and this to actually happen. We want to encourage more parent participation and more parent, and I know that this comes across as not. And so I want to figure out how to fix that. But I had to get all the ducks in a row and figure out everything that's going on before I can make an informed decision. So I couldn't just jump into a response. So what I'm asking, and Brenda is here now, I see her on, she will reach out to Laura to coordinate a mutual time to have conversation. Janet, if you want to be there, anybody else in the community wants to be there, and I can meet at the community itself, so I don't have to do it in the district office. I can come to Sunset Park to do this, so we can schedule and go through this together. Because last thing I want is for you two, who especially have been really pillars in that particular area of the community, to feel any way disenfranchised in any way, shape, or form. I do want to note, though, that it was reported by a particular parent at the particular school community, in which case I was required by, you know how when things get sent to me, whether I like it or not, I'm required to report it once it's brought to my attention. That's exactly what happened. It was something that was brought to my attention. I'm required to report it. They did the investigation. This is what they found. I'm not saying that what they found was right. I'm not saying what they found was wrong. At the end of the day, what they found was some form of irregularity, and based on the grievance and the chancellor's regulation, this is why it happened. That should have been explained more clearly. Why it wasn't, I don't know. And I'm not going to put any blame on anybody yet until we have full communication and conversation on both sides and then together. Because I have to hear both sides separately and then come together to make a finalized conclusion so that we can move forward. At the end of the day, we're all still here for the kids in our schools. You as parents, because they're your children and we're required to provide you the support and we're supposed to be there for you. So let's do that. Brenda knows. I will coordinate with Laura to make sure that the meeting's scheduled. I will be there as soon as she schedules me, and I'll be there to meet with you guys. I'll probably go to Sunset Park. I can probably have some Colombian breakfast. I love when I go there because I get to have some Colombian breakfast. Does that work for you, Laura? Does that work for you, Janet?
Ms. Alvarez, I agree with you 100%.
muted
We're
myself.
adults.
Yeah.
You can hear me? We're
I hear you
adults.
now.
It's important that we work together to resolve conflicts. This is what we do to ensure that our children learn conflict resolution. And that's not how it was transpiring with this situation. So it is important for all stakeholders to sit at a table, have a conversation, and come to some, terms that are agreeable. So thank you. Thank you, Ms. Alvarez.
Absolutely. Of course, of course.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Janet. So we're going to just check in with the interpreters. Mandarin, are there any comments anyone? Mandarin, are there any comments on the Mandarin line? Max, are there any comments?
Okay, now they can, sorry.
Okay, hi, sorry about that. Are there any comments on the Mandarin line?
They should be able to hear you. I don't understand. You can, okay. No, they can hear you. Maybe just go to the next one. Maybe he already said no.
Okay, can I check in on the Spanish line? Are there any comments?
It's because I have to have my.
There's no questions in the Spanish line at this moment.
Thank you. Are there any comments on the Bangalore line?
There are no questions or comments on the Bangla line.
Thank you so much. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
So then we're going to move.
There is no any comment or question on the Mandarin line.
We first have
You at Chew.
We have, yes, we have.
Thank
the
you.
Brooklyn North High
Oh,
School's
she's-
presentation. You at too.
Sorry about that.
You want to sit over there and then we'll
Do you want
turn.
to sit here?
What do you prefer? I can come,
You prefer to face, okay.
yeah, I feel
Come
badly.
around. Come on around. Okay, and this is, all right, everything should be good.
Shanice, my best friend. Always ready, always stylish. Yeah, so since Raphael did all the heavy lifting, I will be short and sweet. So high school joins this last CEC 15 meeting. It has been a journey. Shanice, you can skip to line. Oops. Yeah, you can forward. So right there. So we always start at the beginning, and for us, the 4 years that Janice has led the district, this district has enjoyed tremendous growth. The crowning achievement this year was that all 47 of our schools achieved good standing with New York State. That means no school is in corrective action, and our schools continue to succeed in terms of attendance. Next slide, please. And then our update on the data, your District 15 schools are rocking, providing services to students with IEPs. Cyber arts, actually, I should update that because cyber arts also exceeded 90% as of this week. Next slide, please. So same with Raphael, right? In reflecting on the year, we always start with what grounds us, and in Brooklyn North High School, and I apologize for my voice, it's like allergies or something. Not impersonating anyone. So Brooklyn North High Schools, we are grounded in the pedagogy of critical love. And what all of these words boil down to is in everything we do, we center on the whole child, and we operate with a growth mindset. And as Janice has coined so elegantly, if students are not seen, heard, and affirmed, they do not actually have a chance of truly succeeding. And all of our work and how we support our schools and how we expect our schools to support families and students is based on that same ideal. Next slide, please. So the pedagogy of critical love, throughout the year, we ask ourselves constantly, how does love show up? So in Brooklyn North High Schools, love shows up in our students. Brooklyn North High School is one of the districts that launched MBK, and throughout the year, we hosted events for our young kings. The picture in the bottom in the middle was the most recent event. Through some fundraising and donations, we were able to host a Shark Tank for our MBK teams. And these students in this photo are the 5 winning teams. And it was similar to our work at Aspen Challenge, where each team took on a personal passion project. So 2 students came up with an idea. They're 2 brothers, the kids in the pink shirt on the far left, and they love cars. So they came up with this idea that they wanted to run an after-school club so kids could learn about cars, so that if someday they should be so lucky to own one, they would be educated. A couple of the students in the middle are from the Brooklyn Community Arts and Music School, and they came up with an idea of how to support students in creating formal arts portfolios for when they go to arts colleges. 2 students came up with the super tall basketball star in the middle. He and his best friend came up with an idea of how to support mental health in student athletes because they have felt the stresses of being an athlete, and they came up with this great idea of how to offer peer support for their colleagues. And then the 3 boys in the MBK t-shirts, their idea was to train incoming freshmen in their school on how to live in a healthy manner. And they submitted a proposal where they were going to run a smoothie club, and they were going to run calisthenics exercises and mindfulness breaks. So we actually were able to raise enough money that we funded all 5 projects. So they each got $2,000, and over the summer, they're going to be building out their projects. Next slide, please. The previous one. And then similarly for our queens, my sister's keeper had a. Oh, I don't think I did anything. Can you hear me now?
Can people via Zoom hear us talking?
That mic is on there.
Testing? Yeah, I think it is working now.
So should we turn this one off?
No.
Because then they're gonna get out.
Want to try again?
Is it wrong? Yeah, testing, can you hear me? Yeah? Okay,
Yeah.
so similarly for my sister's keeper, we had a super busy year. Our young ladies were invited to the UN to participate in the Commission on the Status of Women. We hosted self-defense workshops. We hosted panels on social political relevance of women. And we most recently just had an amazing Queen's Tea and crowning for our sisters. Next slide, please. Love shows up in student voice. As a high school district, we feel like we are most successful when our students are agents for themselves. So we hosted 2 student in action events, and then some of our student leaders were invited to a citywide event. Next slide, please. Love shows up in Aspen Challenge, which I have talked about every month, so we can skip this one. Love shows up in how our school counselors are supported by our team. Again, with monthly gatherings where they worked with the Options Institute to build their own toolkits to support families with post-secondary readiness. We treated them to a mindfulness and yoga retreat, which I'm pretty sure was their favorite meeting of the year. Next slide, please. Love shows up in our parent coordinators, our 47 amazing human beings who we know are the heart of each of our schools. At our end of year event, it actually coincided with the 20th anniversary of when the parent coordinator role was birthed by Mayor Bloomberg. And we found out that 7 of our PCs have been in their roles in their schools for all of the 20 years. So we were able to surprise them with, we couldn't bring back Mayor Bloomberg, but we were able to get Mayor Adams to issue personal citations to each of our 7 rock stars. Next slide, please. And then love shows up in how we support our principals and teachers. These are different images from events that I have spoken out throughout the year. The 2 in the middle, the picture at the top was our last principals meeting, which was at the Brooklyn Botanic Gardens, one of my personal favorite places, and it was amazing to be able to share it with our principals. And then the picture on the bottom are our first-year principals. And I share this picture everywhere because first, it is really hard being a first-year principal, and these amazing individuals are smiling in the middle of May, in the middle of all that they are working on, and we just love them to death. Next slide, please. Then different ways to stay in touch, as always. Next slide, please. And we thought we would end with a thank you. This is one of my favorite quotes, and I think it's relevant in our relationship this year, CEC. Gratitude unlocks the fullness of life. It turns what we have into enough and more. It turns denial into acceptance, chaos to order, confusion to clarity. It can turn a meal into a feast, a house into a home, and a stranger into a friend. So we say thank you, District 15 friends. And to join in the Camille Casaretti party. Come here, Camille.
All right.
So I get to say, I will see you at CCHS tomorrow night. We don't have to say farewells. We're going to continue our journeys together. And then this is from the Brooklyn North High School District. It's a certificate of appreciation presented to Camille Patrick for your service and your commitment. We love you.
I love you, Brooklyn North.
We love you, Camille. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
All right, so. Okay, thank you so much, Superintendent Chu.
Not Superintendent Ross. I'm just the minion who gets to be. I love you.
Okay, thank you. Either way, it was an amazing presentation. I'm gonna open up to public comments. If there are any, there's no one here. Are there any, is there anyone on Zoom who would like to comment? My computer, so I can't say nothing.
It doesn't seem like there's anybody raising their hand.
We just check in with the interpreters, see if there anyone.
Is there anyone on the Mandarin line?
I just double check. There's no any further comment or question on the Mandarin line. Thank you.
Great. Is there anyone on the Bangla line?
No one on the Bangla line.
Is there anyone on the Spanish line?
There's no questions at this moment on the Spanish line.
Okay, thank you so much.
Okay, do we have any old business to address? No? Do we have any new business to address? No. Okay, at 8:48 p.m., we are concluding, adjourning our calendar meeting. Thank you, everyone, for coming tonight. We are now about to commence our business meeting.
I'll second the motion to adjourn.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
You made it. You made it.
Great. Great. Thank you so much. Okay.
No, because we're doing business and.
I'm just making sure.
Yes, thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. All right. Good evening, everyone. And this is now the CEC 15, June 13th, 2023 business meeting. I am Nancy Randall, acting president of CEC 15, and I would like to call this meeting to order at 8:48 p.m. Again, we are coming to you from PS 32 in the Carroll Gardens, Gowanus area. I would like to ask everyone that is here in person to sign the attendance sheet at the back of the room. Currently, we have 20 people on this call. Thank you all for being here tonight. Let's call the roll.
Okay, Antonia Ferraro is here. Tia Shelstead is absent. Vincent Liu has an excused absence. Nana Poku Ajakun is absent. Alfred DeAngelis is absent. Joseph Alexander has an excused absence. Yvonne Bonda is absent. Nancy Randall?
Here.
Vanessa Gonzalez-Yoga? And Nakia Muhasa Brown?
Present.
Great. All right, we do not have quorum.
Okay, we do not have quorum, so we can't vote on the minutes. So we will not be voting on minutes tonight. Next on our list is the treasurer's report. Nakia, do you have anything that you would like to share?
Hi. Okay, so that's the only update we have here is that the current budget is, the remaining budget is $4,745. That's all I have to report.
Okay, great. So, and just for the people on the call, what is our starting budget?
Our starting budget is $25,000.
Okay, so we have spent a little bit more than 20,000.
Yes.
Okay, all right. Thank you so much.
And we would vote on member reimbursements, but we're not able to do so because we don't have a quorum. So we will move on to old business. Is there any old business that anybody would like to bring up? Okay, is there any new business that anybody would like to bring up?
No.
Okay, great. So I motion for us to adjourn this meeting at 8:51 PM. Do I have a second?
A second?
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody, for coming to our CEC meeting. Thank you to our interpreters. Thank you again to former President Camille Casaretti for her amazing service. Thank you to all of the people that we had here tonight, and we wish you all a good night. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, interpretation, you're dismissed. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Good night. Bye-bye.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you, everyone.
All right.